Castles were designed to keep people out. Cybersecurity systems are designed to keep data in. They sound like opposite goals, but the architecture behind them is nearly identical. Moats, checkpoints, layered access, a most valuable asset buried deepest inside. Today we're going to unpack why two systems built for opposite purposes 1,000 years apart ended up looking almost like blueprints of each other. Imagine you had something valuable enough that people would risk everything to take it. Your first instinct might be to lock it away completely. Bury it. Seal it in concrete. Never touch it again. But that instinct fails almost immediately. Because the moment you seal something away forever, it becomes useless to you too. This is the real problem humans have wrestled with for thousands of years. Not how to keep everyone out. That part is easy. The real challenge is how to let the right people in, again and again, without opening the door to the wrong ones. A medieval lord couldn't wall off his gold and his grain stores and call it a day. He needed merchants coming in to trade, farmers bringing food, soldiers moving in and out, messengers delivering news from other territories. A castle that let no one through its gates wasn't safe. It was starving. Centuries later, a company faces the same exact tension. Its servers hold something just as valuable as any lord's treasury. Financial records, customer data, trade secrets, and that data has to keep moving. Employees log in every day. Customers make transactions. Vendors need access to specific systems. According to IBM's 2025 Cost of a Data Breach report, most breaches don't happen because attackers overpower advanced technology. They happen because of gaps in access management and entry points nobody was watching closely enough. Different centuries. Same unsolved trade-off. Every gate you build for legitimate access is also a door an intruder could slip through. So picture yourself as an attacker standing outside a medieval castle. Where do you actually try to get in? Not through the walls. Stone walls 20 feet thick weren't meant to be broken through. They were meant to make you give up on that idea entirely and go looking for another way in. And that's the real trick behind castle design. It wasn't one big barrier. It was a sequence of smaller ones, each built to slow you down, expose you, or force you into a position where you could be seen and stopped. Start at the outer wall. Already, you're being funneled toward one location, the gatehouse, because that's the only realistic way through. The gatehouse itself was rarely a simple door. Many were built with narrow passages just wide enough for a cart or a few people walking single file, with arrow slits cut into the walls on either side. If you made it past the first barrier, guards positioned above and beside you could still stop you before you reached the inner courtyard. Some castles added a twist to the passage, forcing anyone moving through to expose their unshielded side to defenders above. Others included openings in the ceiling of the gate passage, sometimes called murder holes, which allowed defenders to drop objects or fire down on intruders trapped in the narrow space below. And even if you cleared the gatehouse, you weren't inside yet. You'd reached the outer courtyard, called the bailey, where daily life happened. Blacksmiths, stables, storage. This space had to stay open enough for the castle to actually function. But beyond it stood another wall, another gate, another checkpoint, this one guarding the inner bailey. Only past that second barrier did you reach the keep, the tallest and most fortified structure, usually holding the lord's most valuable possessions and serving as a last refuge if everything else failed. Notice what's happening here. At no point does the castle rely on a single point of failure. Instead, it forces every intruder through a series of decisions, each one designed to reveal them, slow them, or trap them, while still letting merchants, servants, and soldiers move through the very same gates every single day. The castle wasn't just a barrier. It was a filtering system. It let ordinary traffic flow while making it progressively harder and more dangerous for an intruder to reach anything valuable. Now take that same filtering logic, remove the stone completely, and rebuild it out of something that has no walls at all. So what does a gatehouse look like when there's no physical gate at all? A company's network faces the same challenge a medieval lord faced, just without any stone to work with. Employees need access. Customers need access. Vendors need limited access to specific systems. And somewhere inside all of that traffic, an attacker might be trying to slip through disguised as someone who belongs there. The first layer most organizations rely on is a firewall, which works similarly to that outer castle wall. It filters incoming traffic before it ever reaches internal systems, blocking obvious threats and funneling legitimate activity toward a single monitored entry point. That entry point is authentication, a login, a password, increasingly, a second step, like a code sent to your phone. This functions like the castle's gatehouse. It's the narrow passage everyone has to pass through, and it's specifically designed to expose anyone who doesn't actually have the right credentials. But just like the castle didn't stop at one gate, modern networks don't stop at one login either. Once inside, a legitimate employee doesn't automatically get access to everything. This is called network segmentation, and it works almost exactly like the separation between a castle's outer bailey and inner bailey. An employee in marketing might move freely through certain systems, the digital equivalent of the outer courtyard, while financial records or source code sit behind another checkpoint entirely, guarded by stricter access controls. This is often called the principle of least privilege, meaning people only get access to what they specifically need, nothing more. The most sensitive systems, the digital version of the keep, are typically protected by the strictest layer of all, sometimes called privileged access management, which tightly limits who can reach the most critical data and closely tracks what they do once they're there. But there's a piece of this system that castles never had in the same way, and it might be the most important part: constant monitoring. Modern networks include logging and detection systems that watch traffic around the clock, looking for unusual behavior, like someone logging in from an unexpected location or trying to access files they've never touched before. This matters because of something IBM's 2025 report found. Organizations took an average of 241 days to identify and contain a breach, the fastest that number has been in 9 years, largely credited to faster detection tools. That number matters because in security, time is almost everything. The longer an intruder goes unnoticed, whether they're inside a castle wall or inside a network, the more damage they can do before anyone realizes something is wrong. So when you strip away the language of computers, what you're left with is strangely familiar. A filtered outer boundary, a single monitored checkpoint, progressively restricted inner zones, and a system built on the assumption that someone, eventually, will get further than they should. Now let's put both of these systems side by side and ask a harder question. Are they actually the same solution, wearing different materials? Or do they just happen to look alike? Strip both systems down to their bare mechanics, and the materials disappear. What's left is a shared decision-making process. Filter, verify, delay, monitor, contain. Every layer of a castle existed to do one of these 5 things. The outer wall filtered, the gatehouse verified, the narrow passage delayed, the guards watched, the inner walls contained whatever got through. And every layer of a modern network does the exact same job with entirely different tools. The firewall filters, the login verifies, segmentation delays and contains. The monitoring systems watch. This isn't a loose resemblance. It's the same underlying architecture built twice, 1,000 years apart, by people who had never heard of each other's solutions. Look at where these two systems line up almost perfectly. Both rely on layered access instead of a single barrier, because a single barrier only has to fail once. Both funnel traffic through a small number of checkpoints rather than trying to watch every possible entry point equally. Both operate on the assumption that only the people who need access to a specific area should be allowed into that area and no further. And both are built on a quiet but important assumption: the outermost layer will eventually be breached. That's not a design flaw. It's the reason deeper layers exist in the first place. But push the comparison further, and it starts to break down, and that's actually where things get more interesting. A castle's threat was visible and limited. An approaching army could be seen from the walls. Its size could be roughly estimated. Its speed could be tracked. A network's threat is almost the opposite. An attack can come from anywhere in the world, arrive silently, and originate from thousands of automated sources at the exact same moment. There's no watchtower that can visually confirm a cyber attack is approaching before it arrives. There's another difference worth noting. Once a castle was built, its defense was largely static. The walls didn't need to be redesigned every week. A network's defense has to adapt constantly, because attackers are actively probing for new weaknesses in real time, and yesterday's secure system can become tomorrow's vulnerability without a single new wall ever needing to fall. These differences matter. Forcing every detail into a neat comparison would be inaccurate, and inaccuracy isn't worth a tidy narrative. The threats are genuinely different in scale, speed, and visibility. And yet, underneath both systems, something else is happening that has nothing to do with walls or firewalls at all. Neither the castle nor the modern network was ever really designed to keep everyone out. If that were the actual goal, the solution would be simple. Seal it completely and let nothing through, ever. Neither system does that, because neither system could survive that. What both are actually doing is managing trust at scale, deciding, continuously, who gets to move closer to whatever is most valuable, and building a structure that can still contain the damage when that trust turns out to be misplaced. The Gatehouse doesn't guarantee that no attacker will pass through it. The login screen doesn't guarantee that every valid password belongs to the right person. Both systems are built with the understanding that verification will sometimes fail, which is exactly why they don't rely on verification alone. That's the pattern hiding beneath 900 years of history. Security was never really the art of building a wall high enough. It's the art of managing trust in a system where perfect trust is never actually possible. And once you see it that way, the lesson stops being about castles or computers specifically. Any system protecting something valuable, whether it's a business, a set of records, or a piece of infrastructure, runs into the same unavoidable trade-off between staying open enough to function and staying closed enough to survive. The answer was never more walls. It was better layering, faster detection, and trust that gets rebuilt continuously instead of granted once and forgotten. So the next time you badge into an office, log into an app, or even just lock your front door, ask yourself, is this actually keeping people out, or is it just deciding, faster than you realize, who to trust and how much? Because that's the real system you're living inside every day. If you had to defend something valuable right now, a business, a piece of data, an idea, where's the one gate you'd worry about most? Drop your answer below. I read every one, and I'm curious how differently everyone sees their own weak point.